You're listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast, a podcast for Steelers fans by Steelers fans. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, read articles on renegadeblitz.com, and like us on Facebook. And welcome back to the Renegade Blitz podcast. I'm Ty Polk, joined by Chris Ward and Guthrie Rasmussen. Well, guys, it's another Victory Monday, and the Steelers are 9-0. The final score was 36-10, and it was never much in doubt for the home squad. We'll talk about every aspect of the Steelers game this past Sunday, but I want to get your thoughts on the performance.
The Steelers just dominated, really from, pretty much the start. I mean, they kind of started off a little bit slow, but I thought Roethlisberger had like a surgical type performance, had a season high 330 yards passing and also a season high 4 touchdown passes. So that was just a great performance by Ben, and the defense forced the Bengals to be 0 for 13 on third down, which was just a dominating performance by the Steelers defense.
Like he said, overall, thought they had a really good game. This is how I expected the Cowboys game to go, more like score-wise and play-wise. But it's just nice to have a win like this where you were never having heart palpitations in the middle of the game.
Well, speaking of words start with W and also have an IN in there, the wind was a big story early on in this game, along with Ben's first couple of drives, as Chris mentioned. He has come in off of limited practice reps before and excelled, but there was one total first down between the two teams in the first 7.5 minutes of the game, and it was on a catch and run with Deontay Johnson for 13 yards. It was not the kind of start they had with Baltimore and Dallas, but certainly, at least by the end of the first half, it was a winning performance for the Steelers. Did you think it was more execution in the weather than play calling for their early troubles?
I think the weather, that was really windy yesterday. Credit to Ben for, throwing through that wind, and also Boswell making, his 3 field goal attempts. But I think it definitely played a factor in the beginning. You saw that one deep pass to Claypool where it just, the ball just kind of hung up in the air and just fell incomplete. But it really started opening up when Roethlisberger hit that deep pass to Deontay Johnson down the left sidelines for 46 yards. I thought after that it was just, Ben just started to do what he does and, started to dominate.
Yeah, this entire East Coast of the United States was so windy this Sunday. I mean, I felt it in my car driving home over the weekend, and for Ben to throw that well in that amount of wind was very impressive.
Yeah, I know my cable went out yesterday while the game was going on, just because how windy it was and everything. And we saw the weather in New England last time, and that was brutal. How hard that rain was coming down and the wind and everything. So yeah, entire East Coast yesterday got hit with some pretty bad weather.
Yeah, but 10 minutes after the game, it was perfectly fine in New England.
Yeah.
It goes to show you.
Belichick must be a weather wizard as well. But I will say this, being the lone Pittsburgh representative on this podcast, early on, yeah, because it was the type of wind where it comes up against the entire house and you can just hear it. I was out on the Homestead Grays Bridge coming back home, and basically the wind was so bad that, traffic lights weren't working because they were just getting swung around and everything like that. And the day before, we did yard work around the house. We cleaned up all the leaves around here, and when you come outside and look outside the front, it's nothing but leaves. It's like we did nothing. It was just that type of day, but I can tell that the wind basically, after that first quarter, maybe about coincidentally after that halfway mark, I really feel that the wind stopped. Another thing we have to talk about is the Steelers' rushing attack. Stymied again. Only 44 yards on 20 carries, averaging 2.2 yards per rush. This air raid style attack led by Ben Roethlisberger has carried them throughout the road trip in this game. The running attack seemed to be okay, though, to start the game. Then it got worse and ultimately was just abandoned. Connor tried going out wide on some runs, and it did not go well at all. Is this something you think the Steelers could keep up with? Is it time to have Snell or McFarland start the game at running back just to create a change of pace?
I think the run game is definitely a concern. I think it's not costing them obviously in losses so far, but the last two games the Bengals and Cowboys had one of the worst rush defenses in the league, and they didn't rush for over 50. They rushed for fewer than 50 yards in 3 straight games really, and yesterday was the season low with 44 yards. So I don't know. Like I posted on Twitter, is like do you think it's the James Conner just not making enough plays, the play calling, or is it the run blocking? And it's probably a combination of all three. But I mean, it's definitely concerning. I think to see them not be able to run the ball, especially against teams that are not good at defending the run.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think they're playing to Le'Veon Bell's strengths, or not Le'Veon Bell. Let me restart. I'm very concerned because I don't think they're playing to James Conner's strengths whatsoever. I don't think having him run outside obviously isn't working. Those draw plays kind of to be where he tries to do too much behind the line of scrimmage, where he's trying to be kind of Le'Veon Bell. It's just not working because the defense is just penetrating that offensive line so easily. I think there's a lot of layers to this, but as for your last question, I still don't think we need to, drop James Conner yet. I just think we need to play to his strengths more.
It's funny that you mentioned that, but on their second drive in Cincinnati territory, Chase Claypool's reverse and then a fake reverse dive kind of sprung Conner to maybe one of his better runs in a game. It was really his first noticeable run probably since Baltimore. Would you like to see reverses more often? They kind of didn't work against the Bengals as well, but they got to do something out there. It's been one of the money plays for the Steelers this season.
I think the reverses and the jet sweeps definitely help, and they've been running them a lot this year. The Bengals they kind of keyed on that jet sweeps, the jet sweeps that they're running. But I think they should continue to use it moving forward because they have great receivers that can run the ball. But I think they need to, like Guthrie mentioned, the runs to the outside are not working. They try to pull Pouncey or DeCastro and stuff to the outside. It just takes too long to develop, and the linebackers and defensive line are just flowing there and tackling Conner. And he really doesn't have much of a chance most of the time on those plays. It's just defense is just all over it. So I don't know what it is. I don't know if Pouncey and do you think Pouncey and DeCastro are still they're obviously great players, but do you think they're still they are getting up there in age, but do you think they still can pull at the level that they once could?
It's tough to say. For me, I don't think they're something. I don't know. They're definitely getting up there in age, and it could be attributed to DeCastro's injury.
Yeah,
that he's had since the beginning of the season. I don't know if he's truly over that yet. We hope so. But definitely, something's got to change, and I'm not sure.
And Filer's not much like that's not his game to kind of get out to the outside, and he's not the most mobile. He's not like DeCastro or even Dotson. Dotson's a really good puller, but you're not going to start him over DeCastro, obviously.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about this all night, really. There's a question of the personnel out there, because the Steelers love to run empty. They love to do off tackle handoffs from the shotgun position. James Conner really doesn't line up with a guy and especially with a healthy Derek Watt. You thought that the Steelers would go back to I formation more, but I guess they still want to keep Ebron out there and something like that. And you have to wonder with Vance McDonald not being in the lineup, how much that switches up their running attack with him. But I said this on Facebook well before we created this podcast, that when the Steelers decided to draft Chase Claypool, it was basically saying that, okay, we're going to go full on into the air raid here. It seemed like, okay, we know what we are. We're going to be a passing team. We believe that Ben is going to come back with a vengeance. And so far, it's worked out for the Steelers.
Yeah, I mean, they're loaded at the receiver position. I mean, they have so much depth, across the board. Juju Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool. Then you even have James Washington too, and Eric Ebron has been doing well this year. So they have a ton of targets, and you don't want to break what's been working with Roethlisberger, spreading the ball out and getting the ball to the skill players. But I think at some point this year they're going to play a better secondary because the Bengals, they're decimated with injuries at the cornerback position. They had Tony Brown as one of their cornerbacks who was off the practice squad for the Bengals as starting opposite of William Jackson III. So, and they're going to face a better pass rush too than what they faced with the Bengals, who only had 11 sacks on the season. So once they start playing these better defenses, they're going to have some type of running game just to keep teams honest.
Yeah, just trying to be more creative with the runs. In conclusion, I think would be the smartest thing here, because when you have to face a team like, I guess, the Bills later on in the season, obviously they're not our next opponent, but I think it's a good example. They have a decent secondary, and I think they have a decent pass rush. It's just about, you got to have a good balance. Like, you can't. I mean, eventually you're going to face a team where they have they have a really good defense overall, and you need to be able to exploit both aspects of their defense at different times.
You say Buffalo's the team to look out for. It's actually, for me, Indianapolis, because they're kind of up there in the interception total. So, yeah, those two teams could be ones because they have good pass defenses. So,
yeah, that's a good point with the Colts because they have a good run defense also, and they're doing well in the secondary. And then on the other side of the ball, the Colts, that will be the best offensive line the Steelers pass rush will face all year. The Colts have a really good offensive line. Let's see how Phillip Rivers does in that. That's week 16, but that's definitely a game to look forward to down the road.
Yeah, their defense is definitely fast, so that'll be interesting.
Moving on, and I said this on Twitter, and I just got to ask you guys this: on a scale of 1 to 10. How worried are you when Ben Roethlisberger comes up grabbing his right arm, or largely maybe his knee or something like that? Just any body part in general. Like, how nervous are you guys?
Yeah, anytime he holds his elbow, it's definitely concerning. And I know I was really worried against Dallas when he had that knee injury and he had to go into the locker room. I was like, man, I hope Roethlisberger comes back and is able to play. And you don't have to see, Mason Rudolph play for any, extended period of time.
I mean, yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's 11. But, every time it happens, it's just, I believe you kind of said this on Twitter, or somebody said it on Twitter. It's just the announcers always blow it up. Like, it's just, whoa, it's just like, but it's like after watching him for, was this week 9 or week 10 in the season? It's just kind of like, okay, he's fine. Funny bone, as you said, in his post-game conferences. It's just, he'll be all right as long as his elbow hasn't fallen off again.
Yeah, because literally the next possession right after that, deep shot to Deontay Johnson, connects with James Washington, and Deontay Johnson for a touchdown. I said something similar on Twitter, and I was like, never mind, he's fine. That's just Ben. We just really, it's scary because, especially after going through last year's debacle, you don't want to go through that again. But of course, after that little injury scare and that drive, it led to another great game for Ben Roethlisberger, who finished going 27 for 46 for 333 yards, and as Chris mentioned, season high for yards and 4 touchdowns. That's season high as well. Guys, what else can we say? Like, where will we be without Ben Roethlisberger right now? And can somebody please put that man in MVP discussion?
Yeah, he's definitely, I think, in the running now. 22 to 4 touchdown interception ratio, which is incredible, and he's on pace to have 39 touchdown passes and 7 interceptions. 39 touchdown passes would be a career record for him. His highest is 34 touchdown passes, which he accomplished in 2018. So, I mean, Roethlisberger's just, been playing unbelievable and, definitely a big factor into why the Steelers are 9-0. After being the 8-0 team last year and seeing that quarterback play with Hodges and Rudolph was brutal. Probably the worst quarterback play I've seen as long as I've been watching the Steelers play. We're spoiled with Ben, 17 years here now with him playing quarterback. So it just changes everything. And Claypool's been a great addition. And I think Matt Canada, too, has done a lot of good things for the offense, being the quarterback coach and adding some new schematics there for the offense.
It's just a very sharp Ben. He's very smart with the football, as you already said, with his interception ratio. This needs to keep it up. I mean, if you think about it, he had 3 of those interceptions against the Titans, right? Was that who it was against?
Yeah, and then the other one was against Denver.
Yeah, so I mean, other than that one crappy game, which it wasn't even crappy, they still won. He just made those costly, or they weren't even costly. He just made those mistakes kind of in bad times. This is a new Ben. I've never, in my entire, I've been a lot, in my entire time where I've been, watching the Steelers, probably since 2005. This is the best I personally have seen him this season, just based off of, how smart he is with the football.
I can't dispute that, but he did almost scare the daylights out of everyone who considers himself a Steelers fan whenever he threw that little floater to Jesse Bates. It was like, oh, come on, man, don't do that. But luckily, Bates couldn't hang on, and clean sheet for Ben Roethlisberger. It's always great to see that. And
did you hear Jonathan Vilma's reaction after Jesse Bates dropped that interception?
Everyone was hating on Jonathan Vilma. Yeah. It's just like, I still tweeted out that I want Pat McAfee back in the booth, but it's like, Vilma did okay.
Yeah. It was like the game was over at that point, and I don't know, people probably thought why he was so excited, but overall it wasn't bad.
Yeah. When I call a football game, I want to be that excited about everything.
Yeah,
that's what I want to do. But go ahead, Guthrie.
Yeah, sorry. I just like the little tie-in with him and Ben and Vilma being in the same draft class. I just think it's a really cool dynamic. I do like him calling the game. I think he deserves. I think he deserves shots. And commentating. I think he did a very good job. And who you guys know who the other guy was?
It's Kenny Albert.
Yeah, it was Kenny Albert.
Yep. I think those guys are. They've called 2 games for us, and both games, they have a couple little gaffes that's just kind of like, like any commentator. But I think if they keep working, they could get some decent chemistry together.
They didn't know that was Juju's parents in the stands.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but that's tough to. You think someone in the booth would have told them the second time, but everybody makes those mistakes or whatever.
Yeah, Steelers fans, at least this off of social media, that.
Well, yeah, social media, so it's brutal. Like anyway, anything that happened.
Mm-hmm. In their defense, it's just sometimes your spotter. Usually these booths, it's just like, for example, low-level guys like what I aspire to be have their own like binoculars or something like that. But that's usually just like, it's just a bugaboo by the spotter. It happens sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
Deontay Johnson, this entire season, you can just call him maddeningly inconsistent, because how great it can be. Like that first half in which he has 6 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown. That was his final stat line, but that was all done by halftime. Guys, what are your thoughts about Deontay Johnson's, would you call it a coming out party or no?
I think he's had good performances yet. Prior, he just, that 46-yard reception was huge. It really just started to open things up, and Roethlisberger really got going after that. And then he threw that Roethlisberger threw a touchdown pass to Johnson, where right when he got out of his break on his route, the ball was right there for him. And the second half, the Steelers, they had the game won pretty much, and Ben was going towards Claypool. It seemed like a little bit more, and Juju got some touches too in the second half. So I think. Or got some receptions in the second half. So I think I wasn't really concerned about him not getting any, receptions in the second half. But I thought it was a good. He had that drop early in the game, and I saw on social media a lot of people were like saying exactly like how he's so up and down, and you just never know with Deontay Johnson. But I thought he made up for it once he had that big reception and following that a touchdown.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just after his injuries, kind of his injury woes this whole season, it's just nice to see him get this kind of stat line for the week. And I mean, we'll definitely move on to the entire group as a whole. But I think he has special skill sets that the other people in the receiving room don't have. I think he's really good after the catch, and I think it's just. I think we're definitely very happy to have him. And when he does well like this, other than that drop, because if that drop was an interception, we'd be having a whole different conversation right now. But I think he's doing very solid. I expect these kind of numbers out of him.
This is his first full season with Ben Roethlisberger, and that was kind of like another worry whenever I had with James Washington. It's like, okay, now he has a season in which there's no Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges he's getting catches from, so he knows that it's kind of like I gotta catch this. It's like he's kind of like relaxed himself a little bit, which can be good, but it's also sometimes caused these issues. So if he has more games like he did like in the first half, he'll be fine. All right, so next up. But guys, let's talk about the rest of the receiving game for the Steelers. And it was a balanced affair for all wideouts there. Juju Smith-Schuster led the way with 9 catches for 77 yards and a touchdown. Another solid game for him. Chase Claypool had 4 catches for 56 yards and 2 touchdowns. Eric Ebron, James Washington, Ray McLeod, and James Conner each received 2 catches each. I think one of the reasons that Roethlisberger has this 22-4 TD to interception ratio is the variety of weapons. Yes, there are usual suspects for record people. If you're doing fantasy football, count on Deontay Johnson. The second wide receiver and there on out is kind of just, it could be a toss-up, really.
Yeah, I thought the receivers played, really well, down the line. Juju, he keeps on making those tough catches, over the middle, fighting for extra yard. It's really been reminding me of like Hines Ward, just how he used to play. And, Juju, he has 5 touchdowns now in the season. And, I think, no matter who he gets paid from, to go by the Steelers or another team this offseason, I think he's going to cash in on a pretty big contract.
Yeah, I completely agree there. But it's just, I'm happy he's with us now, and he's just a special player. This whole entire offensive or wide receiver group is just so special. Just they all make plays every game, and in different ways. Even James Washington, he doesn't get a lot of play time. We mention him every week, I feel like, but when he is called upon, it's just. He makes catches too, but yeah, this Claypool nabbing those 2 touchdowns. The last touchdown especially was my favorite probably of the game. Just nabbing that one in the air in between those two defensive players. But yeah, they're making it easy on Ben Roethlisberger.
Chris, you're worried about Juju getting paid. I have no doubt in my mind that, and you can put a quote on it, Juju Smith-Schuster is going to get the franchise tag this summer. They're not going to tag Dupree again, and I really can't think of anyone else who deserves it. Maybe Mike Hilton could be the guy, but I really believe that the Steelers are going to try to keep Juju. Unless he signs a team-friendly deal off the bat in the offseason, he will get that franchise tag.
Yeah, I mean, I have to look more into it and the whole salary cap. I know there's issues maybe potentially where the cap's going down this year, which could affect some things. But you're right. Bud Dupree might be gone, and it's just tough to pay everyone. And Juju, like the way his stats are compared to some of these other guys, he's looking at $16 million or over that per year. So the Steelers are gonna have to pay up for him, and it all depends. It all comes down to money and what Juju wants, and is he willing to maybe take a little bit less to stay with the Steelers?
To end this little conversation here, but I'm kind of I'm typing away because I'm looking at contracts of people that kind of are close to his class, and Cooper Kupp was signed for a deal worth $48 million. Sterling Shepard for $41 million. I mean, that could potentially be the floor for Juju. So who knows? The Steelers will dish it out. I hope they do, just because of how much I like him as a player and as a person. But it's just tough to see. I want to see how this offseason shakes out with the Cap Wizards down there and in Pittsburgh.
But last thoughts on the offense, and I guess we have to talk about the pass protection for Roethlisberger. Yes, we talked a little bit earlier about the running attack with the offensive line, but if there's one side of them that's been almost perfect this year, it's been the pass protection. I mean, again, this air raid style, 2 seconds and shoot offense for the Steelers has really protected Ben, but Carl Lawson for the Bengals, as predicted with Lindsey Patterson of the Cincinnati Enquirer, was a monster. He registered 6 quarterback hits, and Von Bell had the other 2 for Cincinnati. But despite this, there was no sacks on Roethlisberger, and he actually drew a roughing the passer penalty for a low hit. They would go on to capitalize with a Smith-Schuster touchdown to go up 19-7. That's been the one big thing that has not fallen off in terms of the offensive line again for the Steelers. So is it because the Steelers' offensive line is maybe there's an emphasis on we've got to protect Ben, and also this quick passing game, which is in a way making up for the lack of a rushing attack?
I think the pass blocking has been really good this year. They've only allowed 10 sacks, which come into this week with the second or tied for the second fewest in the league. And you're right, the Bengals. I mean, Carl Lawson is a good player, but that's their only real pass rusher. I mean, they didn't have much success getting after Ben, and I think once they go to that spread formation and Ben's getting the ball out quick, I think it's really tough for defenses to stop that, especially with all the talent they have at wide receiver.
Yeah, for sure. But, it's like I didn't really think about this till just now, but, you could tell that they were really missing Geno Adkins and Carlos Dunlap. Those guys were definitely made it way harder on Ben, but, having them gone, obviously we didn't rush that well, but I think they would have had a couple more sacks on the stat line.
Well, they didn't have who they acquired off of waivers, Takk McKinley, so the next matchup in December is going to be interesting to see if Cincinnati can generate a little bit more pass rush. McKinley was kind of a flop for Atlanta, but you know how it is with a new scenery and a new scheme and new ideas. It could probably reignite McKinley's game. But before we transfer over into defense, we have to talk about the special teams, especially after last week's just debacle. Basically everything is fine on special teams right now. Barry's first punt of the game, and on the ensuing kickoff after that field goal, they almost cost a safety, and on that punt, they caused a fumble that allowed them to kick that field goal. I guess it's safe to say the issues last week against Dallas have been fixed.
Yeah, the special teams really bounced back after Dallas put that special teams clank on them last week, and Barry had a great game. Boswell made all 3 of his field goal attempts. Adaney forced that fumble. McLeod had a 42-yard punt return. So across the board is a really good bounce back performance on special teams.
Yeah, this. You could probably argue that this was their best performance yet as a unit. After that Cowboys game, like you guys said, it couldn't come a game sooner.
Guthrie, we were both calling for a Ray McLeod return for a touchdown, and we almost got it, and we were in the group text going, come on, man, why can't he have this? And rest assured, folks, it's coming. It's got to be coming soon because he's getting close. And man, I really wished I would have got that prediction, that bold prediction, right this week.
Yeah, it's definitely a prediction I'm making every week, and not just for fun. I just think he's so close. Like, he's getting there. But, it's coming. I think you'll get at least one of those before the season ends for sure. And I hope it comes at a moment where we need it most. Not in garbage time against the Bengals.
And guys, now let's talk about the defense and what's your thoughts on their game. They didn't give up a first down until the final minute of the first quarter, and they only gave up 10 points on the game. The Bengals were 0 for 13 on third down. They were 2 for 3 on fourth down. Cam Sutton stripped T. Higgins towards the end of the first quarter, and it was recovered by Steve Nelson. It was Sutton's third forced fumble in 3 games, which is now the longest active streak in the NFL.
Yeah, Sutton's been playing incredible lately. Like you mentioned, 3 straight games where he's had a forced fumble. He just has a real knack of punching the ball loose, and that was a great play there on Higgins. And I thought Joe Hayden had a really good game as well. He had 3 passes, 3 pass breakups, and overall the secondary they really only gave up that one drive. I know Higgins had over 100 yards receiving and he had a touchdown, but their overall play was pretty solid, I thought.
Yeah, completely agree. Don't have much to say on that front. Other than that, it's great to see Sutton keep improving. With Mike Hilton's absence, hopefully he comes back. But Sutton's definitely holding it down.
Absolutely. And guys, I really want to talk about that 0 for 13 on third down. That was really probably one of the issues that the Steelers have had over the season. It's a slight issue, but typically you do not want teams converting on the long third downs that sometimes the Steelers gave up over the course of the season. So it's nice to see that stat.
Yeah, I mean, they struggled earlier in the season. That Eagles game comes to mind, but to see them just completely dominate on third down was huge. 0 for 13. That hasn't happened in an NFL game since 2012. The Steelers haven't done that since 2004, where they allowed the opposing team to not convert any third down. So really just a great performance by the Steelers defense, and credit to Mike Tomlin and Keith Butler for coaching a good game on defense.
Yeah, for sure, because I thought Joe Burrow would have a slightly better game, better than we thought, because, we saw Garrett Gilbert last week, and he carved us up at times, but it was a good game for this defense overall, for sure.
And now let's talk about the run defense. They didn't give up another single 100-yard rusher, but the rushing total for the Bengals was 139 yards on 21 carries. It was between 4 players, no Joe Mixon, so the Bengals had this quartet led by Samaje Perine, Gio Bernard, and Trayvon Williams had 100 yards between the 3 of them. The rest of that 39 yards came off 1 carry to Sean Williams. Overall, the Bengals averaged 6.6 yards a carry, with no runner averaging under 3.8 yards a carry. But at the same time, it didn't seem like the gashing, at least from feeling it as a Steelers fan, from the Dallas and Baltimore games over the past couple weeks. One reason why I probably didn't feel like that was because the Steelers were up huge when that run happened, and the return of Tyson Alualu. What are your thoughts on how the Steelers defense held Cincinnati's rushing game?
Yeah, I thought they did a really good job. I mean, they had a lot of yards off that fake punt return, and they had some garbage time runs, but overall they did really good. And the Bengals, they're not really a good rushing team, especially without Joe Mixon, and their offensive line overall is just really bad. They can't pass block, or they're not very good in run blocking either. So I thought it was a pretty good overall day for the Steelers defense and the rush defense. But The Bengals are their game is kind of spreading the ball out and with their three wide receivers and letting Burrow throw the ball around the field.
Yeah, I think they did. I think the Bengals did better than I thought I did on the ground. Like, I mean, they kind of seems like they abandoned the run once the Steelers kind of started to put some points up on them. But I mean, I think if they put their running backs in the right situation, they could have gouged us a little more. I'm still kind of concerned about the run defense a little bit once we possibly play against some other teams. But hopefully they tighten up a little bit. Alou back is huge. I think he had a good game to come back to. He got a pretty good tackle. But yeah, we'll see as the season continues to go on. But they did a decent job. They didn't let anybody kill them individually, and that's kind of what I like to see with this defense.
Yeah, but I notice is nitpicking on my part, but it's just noticing the trend between the last couple weeks, and that was before Alou came back, and I guess maybe Hilton can shore that up a little bit more. But it's just that teams are no longer attacking the Steelers' run defense with one rusher. They're putting duos in Cincinnati, I guess by design with the loss of Joe Mixon decided, well, let's just throw 4 running backs out there and see what they can do. I mean, it's different looks, and that kind of leaves you worried whenever you go towards the bigger guns offensively that have running backs, like you think the Kansas Cities of the world, and of course Baltimore. Because I know this, it's going to be weird seeing Le'Veon Bell in another uniform against the Steelers, even though last year with the Jets that was one thing, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire, when you really think about that, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the Chiefs may have another running back. I know Damian Williams is out for COVID protocol, but it just made me think of that for a second.
Yeah, I mean, I know they have that duo with Helaire and Bell, and they definitely need to tighten up on the run defense. We'll see this week when they go up against James Robinson for the Jaguars, who's having a big year with 7 touchdowns. He was tied with Claypool for the most touchdowns for a rookie up until this week when Claypool had 2 touchdowns. So and he had over 100 yards rushing against Green Bay. And Jacksonville's a pretty good one-win team, if that makes sense. Sense. They played a lot of teams tough this year, so hopefully the Steelers come with their A game and don't let up this week in Jacksonville.
Yeah, definitely. Keep seeing as the season goes on, but they just got to keep it up.
I want to see how they do this week in Jacksonville, but even more so against when they play Baltimore again, because the Ravens rushed for 265 yards against them in their first meeting. So, the Bengals, especially without Joe Mixon there, they're not going to be much of a threat as a run team.
And now the pass rush. They did what many of our guests have been concerned about this season, and they got to the quarterback, and they got to Joe Burrow big. They sacked Joe Burrow 4 times. Watt with 2, Dupree and Spillane picking up a sack each, and they hit him 9 times. Watt 4 times, Dupree 2 times, Hayward 2 times, and 1 for Spillane. It was a nice welcoming present to the Steelers' rivalry for him. Thoughts on another good day for the pass rush?
I think Watt just continues to, make a case for himself for Defensive Player of the Year. He was all over. Like you mentioned, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss, and he had four quarterback hits as well. So, and his last sack on the game was at the end of the half that put the Bengals out of field goal range. So Watt now has 9 sacks on the season. So I mean, definitely going towards double digits again on the season.
For sure. Just this defensive group giving him a nice welcome to the AFC North present. As he said, it's just what they wanted to do. Like Joe Hayden said, I know he's not the pass rush, but he was wanting to set the tone because he's going to be here for a while. And I think this defense did a good job letting him know that he's got a defense to worry about.
And now let's talk about that pass defense. And the secondary forced that fumble on T. Higgins. It was Cam Sutton. But aside from that, of course, we mentioned a little earlier, he had a good day. 7 catches for 115 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Boyd was up against Joe Hayden, and he was slowed down with 6 receptions for 41 yards. Hayden had 3 pass deflections, and Steve Nelson added 1 as well. And interesting, I know that he's kind of down right now, but I never thought I'd see the day in which the Steelers' pass defense, the secondary, would shut out A.J. Green, who was only targeted 5 times. It was another 100-yard performance by a single receiver, but no harm, no foul, really, for that. Burrow's final stat line was 21 for 40 for 213 yards and 1 touchdown. So, guys, what are your thoughts on the secondary's performance?
I think, I agree with everything. Like Hayden, 3 pass breakups, and 2 of those came on 3rd down. I thought he was really solid. And that's a pretty good Bengals receiving core to only let, one Higgins, have a pretty good game. You're going over 100 yards. And he did have that fumble. And, but it's great to see Sutton, continue to, have a knack for punching the ball out loose. And, I would like to see the defense, they gave up that 54-yard reception to Higgins. So I would like to see them, kind of limit those big plays. But overall, I thought it was a really good day. I was a little worried about Boyd because he's a really good slot receiver. But, Sutton had a pretty, he had a good game in there. And, Hayden did a good job covering Boyd. And then, A.J. Green, targeted 5 times and, not having interceptions, pretty alarming. I know he's, towards the end of his career and stuff, but he's always been a great receiver for Cincinnati. So I thought the secondary did a really good job.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. Just to shut down A.J. Green, who's made some of these games a lot closer. It was pretty important. A.J. Green's a really good player, but he could be potentially on his way out in the next few seasons. But he's an elite talent, so it's just nice to shut him down. I was really worried about Tyler Boyd since it's a homecoming game for him, but I think they did a really good job at limiting his production.
It feels really good to have a guy go out of the lineup and have another one just step right in place. And the questions on Twitter was really who are you gonna pay to be the slot corner for the Steelers? Is it Mike Hilton or Cam Sutton? It's honestly an embarrassment of riches, and probably this is the best cornerback group that all of us have seen from the Steelers in our lifetimes.
You can't really go wrong with either one. I mean, Sutton's been proved that, he could cover, and, Hilton's probably a better run defender, and, that's why I was a little worried when I saw that, he was going to be out again. And, I mentioned that Boyd was one of the best slot receivers in the league, but, Sutton definitely played a good game, and he's been really reliable with Hilton out. And, one of them's going to be back next year, and the other one's going to hit free agency and, be with another team.
Yeah, I don't have a pick yet of who I want. They're both crazy good players, and I'll definitely appreciate having them on this team for the rest of this year.
We're almost finished up with our recap of this game, and it's final thoughts time. So, who is your player of the game? I'll start off by saying this. The player of the game, for me, you got to go Ben Roethlisberger. 4 touchdowns.
No difference of opinion here. I think Ben was just, unbelievable. It was a clinic he put on. He was just, like I mentioned before, he's surgical. How he just completely slashed and I don't like start off pedals. No difference in opinion here. I thought Roethlisberger had an unbelievable performance. You really put on a clinic against that Bengals secondary, who's just, dealing with a bunch of injuries at the quarterback position, but, he took advantage of it. And, his first 3 touchdown passes, you look at, the one to Deontay Johnson where, right when he came out of his break, the ball was right there. the second touchdown pass to Juju was like a vintage Roethlisberger play where he was under pressure, stepped up in the pocket, and threw it to Juju and back the end zone. And then his third one, he put the ball right in the perfect spot for Claypool in the red zone, and it had his vintage pump fake. It was just overall just an incredible performance by Roethlisberger.
Yeah, I'll change it up a little bit. I'd still say Ben, definitely, but TJ Watt with his 2 sacks and his, make sure I get this right, 4 tackles. And how many QB hits did he have this side?
4.
4. So I just think that he'd definitely be up there in the running with Ben Roethlisberger performance-wise.
What aspect of the Steelers' performance on Sunday must improve for the next game and beyond? And I'll just skip ahead for you guys and say the running game. They got to figure out what they want to do out there. Do they want to line up in I formation, broken I, strong I, weak I, whatever I they want? They've got to find a way to get James Conner going, and they've got to use Derek Watt better, and they just got to say, you know what, we'll have 2 wide receivers and a tight end out there, and we'll just live with it.
Yeah, that's really the main issue I want to see them improve going forward, and especially in the playoffs. I think they're going to have to run the ball, at least, better than what they have been. And then just like nitpicking a little bit, probably just like starting off games faster. But I mean, really, there wasn't much to complain about in this 36-10 win over the Bengals by the Steelers.
Yeah, this run game, 100%, and nothing else needs to be said for me.
The Steelers will look to keep their winning streak going against their next opponent, the Jacksonville Jaguars. For our preview podcast, we'll have on John Shipley, beat reporter for Jaguar Report on SI.com, to find out more about a team that has been down on their luck recently, but has historically been a tough matchup regardless of record. The preview podcast will be up later in the week. For now, that's all for us. For Chris Ward and Guthrie Rasmussen, I'm Ty Polk. Thank you for tuning in to the Renegade Blitz. Thank you for listening to the Renegade Blitz podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Renegade Blitz, read articles on renegadeblitz.com, and like us on Facebook. Our podcasts are available on YouTube, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and Spotify.